Can't really pretend that this isn't a slightly downbeat and melancholy way to start the town trail. Riverside's not one of the great sights unless you enjoy contemporary supermarket architecture, and Tony Martin isn't so keen either.
I think Riverside's now a bit bland. There was a very nice house just opposite the United Reformed Church on the other side of the river. There's pictures of that with people in their cottage garden, and they were very beautiful houses, and a lot of people even now express regret that they had to be knocked down.
The next official stop on the trail is the Black Water Pump, which you'll see on this side in the distance just past that bench. Watch out for cars entering the car park from your right, or leaving from your left, of course. And as you make your way to the pump, let's hear something about just how the population has changed in Framlingham over the years. It's a topic that's interested John Bridges, the author of a number of invaluable books on Framlingham.
In the 50s and 60s it was really quite low. It certainly dropped below 2,000. And I think from the 70s and 80s onwards, it's slowly sort of obviously increasing because of the new housing estates that have been built. So naturally the numbers have gone up, and I think the present number is a bit in excess of 3,000.
In actual fact, it hasn't grown as much as one might think, because in 1851 the population was just under 2,500.
Aha, an important new voice in our narrative.
I'm Stephanie Bennell, and I'm chairman of Framlingham Town Council, amongst other things.
See, I told you she was important.
The density is changed, so whereas before you would have cottages with perhaps parents and 6 or 7 children in, now there'd be only one person living in that cottage.
Hopefully you've now reached the Black Water Pump with its 2 spouts. It's been immortalised on the Framlingham town sign.
I don't know, I suppose it got the water out of the river because it got 2 spouts, and one was for the people to fill their buckets from, obviously a convenient level, and the other one you put a pipe on that used to fill a water cart, and so that they would go around the streets and lay the dust.
I mentioned earlier that John Bridges has written a number of books about Framlingham. His most recent is called The Commercial Life of a Suffolk Town, and I'll be dropping heavy hints where you can buy it later on the tour. Actually, we're passing a shop that stocks it. But an earlier book of his, The Portrait of a Suffolk Town, is well worth tracking down as well. It's a collection of photographs of Fram, and one of the most striking is of the area where you're standing now. And it's all under water.
Yes, a lot of the photographs do show floods, and I think it was relatively common. I'm not really sure why it flooded, presumably because the river was really not clear enough to let the mass of floodwater that came through the meres to really had to all escape along the river out of Fram, and it was really not up to it.
No, it doesn't happen so much now. If you get a sudden sharp rain, there doesn't seem to be sufficient drainage in Albert Place, but it doesn't flood up to the axles of carts like it used to be.
The flood pictures were taken by a gentleman called John Self. You'll find them prominently displayed in the Landman Museum.
He took a lot of photographs on glass, and these are prints off from the negatives. Again, it's a fun thing to do, is to walk around the town, look at the photographs and try and identify which they are.
Another reason for popping into the museum when we pass by it on the tour. But does the name John Self seem familiar? Actually, you could well be looking at it. That was his shoe shop on the other side of the road.
He had a gents' outfitters and clothes shop where Clark and Simpson's is now, and I believe he bought that little shop and set up a shoe business there for his wife, which he ran. John Self was very, very strong Methodist, and in fact his name is on the deeds of my house because this was the Methodist manse at some time.
The Methodist connection continues with the church building to your right.
United Reform. That was actually built as a steam animal foods mill. And then it became the People's Hall, and not for very long, and then the Methodists bought it to make it into their church.
Behind there and next to the shoe shop is the so-called Ancient House, a typical Suffolk timber frame construction with some fine pargeting and tall windows, which date it to mid or at least late 17th century.
My grandfather used to tell me that was once a farmhouse, but I presume there was a little farm behind it, but I really don't know much about it. Okay. I never went to saw it, but Oswald Sitwell, who lived there, was chairman of the old Blythe District Council. He had a very good model railway in the cellar, but I never saw that.
And so we neatly reach the topic of the railway, the next subject for the town trail, as we enter Station Road. This next section should be listened to as you walk up Station Road on the right-hand side. You'll pass the Thomas Mills Almshouses, also on the right, and we'll be hearing about them on the way back, and eventually you'll reach Tomb House, named because of the large unmissable tomb in its garden just after you've crossed Brook Lane. So, full steam ahead.